The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, the 12th of June, 2025. We're live here at CHD TV on with Financial Rebellion with Catherine Austin-Fitz and Carolyn Betts. And it's just us this week. So we're going to get some good stuff talked about. So let's get on with the first headline, Lou, if you don't mind. Oh, well, actually, it's not a headline. It's to tell you all that tomorrow we have a very exclusive interview with Dave Weldon and Brian Hooker. You're not going to want to miss that. So it's very honest, truthful talk about what actually happened to Dave Weldon recently. So tune into that tomorrow.
So can I just jump in?
Yes.
Because I do think this is an important interview. So Dave Weldon, not everybody realizes Dave Weldon was basically going in HHS, and at the last moment his nomination got pulled in a very suspicious way. And it underscores the challenge right now of trying to get anything done in the machinery, and why it's essential not to wait for the machinery, because you're talking about somebody who'd been a congressman and a doctor. And his credentials for that position are so absolutely impeccable, Polly. But it shows you that this is why we can't wait for the uniparty to help us. It demonstrates beyond any shadow of a doubt, you cannot wait for the uniparty, and we don't need to wait for the uniparty anyway. But I just want to underscore this is a very important interview, and I'm really glad you're doing this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were right behind Dave Weldon, and he was in the first Vax movie. He clearly was a massive threat, which means who really is in charge?
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
Right. All right, let's pull up the next one. Okay, RFK Jr.'s clean sweep of the CDC vaccine advisors draws mix of high praise and harsh criticism. Children's Health Defense CEO Mary Holland applauded Kennedy's decision to remove all current ACIP members and start fresh, while one critic called the move an unmitigated public health disaster. And then, of course, RFK Jr. here rips CNN over claims on vaccines and placebo-controlled trials. CNN is wrong, Kennedy wrote. No routine injected vaccine on the CDC schedule was licensed for children based on a placebo-controlled trial. In instances where a vaccine was used as a control, it too was never licensed based on a placebo-controlled trial. And then it goes on, and the article goes on. So, well, lots to unpack here, Catherine and Carolyn.
Yeah, so I'm part of a group of people called Not for Sale. And we've been critical of Kennedy, and I'm hoping that helped him do the firing of this group of advisors. But, Kennedy is walking a tightrope. And again, the question is, what can you get done working with a uniparty? And we'll see what can happen. But I would like to point out in he's appointed some of the new people for the panel, and in the process was very critical of, quote, anti-vaxxers. And, what I would just say to Kennedy is cheap tricks are not necessary to get done what you need to get done. Just like I would say, and this is what the Not for Sale group has said, we can't, I buy the argument it takes you time to collect your data and get your ducks in the row, but you do not need to promote vaccines or market them. And last week we had an incident at Solari where literally a subscriber spent several hours talking somebody out of vaccinating their kids. They were not planning on vaccinating their kids, but then they heard Bobby promoting the vaccinations and said, well, maybe I should. So my message to Kennedy is very strong. One, right now, if you look at how many children are getting mRNA vaccines, which can kill, maim, and bankrupt a family, it's not acceptable. And what he can do is simply not promote them and not market them and not call names, call the people who are trying to stop people from maiming and poisoning their children anti-vaxxers. We're not anti-vaxxers. We're anti-murder, we're anti-genocide, and we're anti-poisoning our children. So, I'm going to be a bad guy and say Kennedy's got to do better.
Yeah, I don't think you're being a bad guy at all. I think a lot of people feel the same way. I have no idea what kind of pressure he's on under there, but in my mind, it's irrelevant because, first of all, under 18, certainly those little babies, to me, in my mind, it's child abuse that even, they're going into clinical trials and being experimented on with different kinds of vaccines. And then they're being recommended that healthy babies don't get the COVID shot, but apparently unhealthy babies can get the COVID shot. But then on the other hand, Bobby's saying that most 1 in whatever it is, children are sick in America. So to me, it's messy and it's disgusting. And I'm not out there to slam down Bobby. I'm out there to fight, continue to fight on and warn the parents that these vaccines, as you just said, can kill, can maim, and devastate a family beyond belief.
Right, but I want to make clear to everybody listening to this, we have sufficient facts to know that mRNA technology is a killer and a bankrupter. I'm going to keep coming back to the financial because this is bankrupting families, and it's bankrupting America too. So it's families, and pretty soon the states and local government are going to figure out it's bankrupting them as well. And the reality is you have to be clear about this. Now, many people believe that facts matter, and ultimately, if Bobby can organize and galvanize enough facts, including experimenting on innocent children, that we will be able to get some change. What I believe is the uniparty will not change based on facts. We've had facts for decades, and they haven't responded to facts yet. It keeps getting worse. So I don't think that facts will turn the political wheel. What I think will turn the political wheel is people literally withdrawing their support and making it clear. The more parents who don't vaccinate and poison their children, the more it will make clear that there is nothing to be gained by reforming pharma. You've got a group of companies that are serial killers, and and they violate the law and have consistently violated the law. And we have a military apparatus and intelligence apparatus that has given them legal permission to do so. So,
don't forget that if Congress rescinded the PrEP Act, we would have court cases. We'd have plenty of court cases where people could prove the injury. So, and if they rescinded the emergency, that would make a huge difference too. I mean, those two things would make a huge difference.
We just published a book review of Debbie Lerman's new book, The Deep State Goes Viral, and she does a remarkable job of documenting the extent to which Operation Warp Speed was a military intelligence operation, and they had no interest whatsoever in medicine or scientific fact. None.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we're still dealing with. And we can organize and galvanize all the facts we want, but we're still dealing with a military intelligence operation that is building a control grid, and we are still dealing with that military operation to use an infinite amount of our tax dollars to implement disinformation propaganda and literally mind control, entrainment, subliminal programming. So, and the latest news indicates they're about to start a war in the Middle East. We'll see what happens. But we need to understand that we are up against a machinery that has a political objective and has no interest in the facts. They already know the facts. They know how dangerous mRNA technology is, but they're adamant that they want to get it into all of our bodies.
And the self-amplifying mRNA as well, pushing that is, I cannot even begin. Forget mRNA for seconds. The self-amplifying one is going to just knock people out, and it's going to keep replicating and replicating. It's hugely dangerous. I want to just go back to the new ACIP picks. I'm not going to go into each detail, but I'm hugely, hugely disappointed. Where is Dr. Suzanne Humphreys on there? Where is Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer? Where is Pierre Corey, Paul Marek? Where are all the really good doctors who've been in there for so long? And also, Bobby, to be fair, that Catherine is right. It was cruel of you to say we're not going to have any anti-vaccine doctors or whatever you want to call them. First of all, they're ex-vaxxers. Every single one of them used to vaccinate until they woke up to the dangers of what was happening. They are not anti-vaccine doctors. So and I'm an ex-vaxxer. I vaccinated myself and my children. So we did as we were told to do, and with devastating results. And now we're being branded this ghastly anti-vaxxer doctors. The anti-vaxxer doctors, as you so call them, are the doctors with a brain, the doctors that have done their research, and exactly the kind of doctors that need to be on the ACIP to properly break down what it is you're proposing to put in the American body.
So let me also mention that those are the doctors that put Bobby where he is. If it wasn't for them, he wouldn't have the job.
Correct.
You know, James Lyons Weiler is another person who understands the statistics and the correct methods of doing clinical trials. And having one person like that on ACIP would make a huge difference.
Absolutely right. He should be on there. They all should be. Anyway, so that was deeply disappointing, and I guess we've still got more to come, so we'll wait and see. But I mean, I don't understand it. Having known Bobby Kennedy as my ex-boss of Children's Health Defense, he was so on board. He so understood absolutely everything that was happening to our children, how devastating HPV Gardasil vaccine was. He met many parents. He came to the bus. He really, really got it. So I just don't know what is going on up there. But
what is going on, Polly, is the military intelligence operation is absolutely committed to installing mRNA technology everywhere in everybody and everything. So they are building, and what I believe, and this is my hypothesis, is that this is a core part of the Internet of Bodies. And they are literally, between the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies, they are pushing the digitization of everything, including Bobby. He had a big conference 2 weeks ago with all the executives of wearables companies, and he's nominated somebody for a surgeon general who's got a company, that wants to put a wire under your skin. So this is making hooking us up to the internet literally physically fashionable.
That's what the Internet of Bodies is. If there are any people out there who don't understand it, it's things like nanobots being put in shots that can communicate with computers outside your body. That's what the Internet of Bodies is.
So this next week, I'm going to be recording an interview with Suzanne Humphreys, and we're going to be talking about all the mysterious ingredients we keep finding in the food, we keep finding in the injections, we keep finding in the spray, and what those mysterious ingredients, nanoparticles, do when they get in our bodies. So
Okay.
we're going to be talking about that on the Solari Report, and that's the kind of discussion we need to be having. What is mRNA technology, and why do they continue to insist on giving it to everybody when we know it kills and maims?
Yeah, and how many are in the pipeline coming forward as well? So
Massive, massive.
and the self-amplifying. Ask her about the self-amplifying mRNA.
I will.
That's the bit. That's the thing that concerns me seriously.
Well, let me get personal for a second. I flew out to Seattle and back, and I was booked to fly out of Newark, and because of all the problems at Newark, it was changed to JFK. And it was 3 hours late going out, 3 hours late coming back. And, I won't bore you with the details, but it was a packed plane. And by the time I got back, I was sick as a dog, and I'm sure it's shedding. I mean, if you look at what happened and how I felt, it was just massive shedding.
Yeah, I mean, flying at the moment is pretty disgusting. There's no doubt about that. Okay, let's bring up. I think we've got more headlines. I think, yes, we have. Okay, so this is Michael Caine doing a fantastic job. Love Michael Caine. I submitted a public comment to HHS on the health technology ecosystem. No digital ID, no forced biometric access, no forced wearable tech. Good for him. And that, I think, will be linked into our show notes as well. But do you both know Michael Caine?
No,
Absolutely.
He hosts on Tuesday. He does advocacy.
Oh, yes.
He's
Yes.
the New York teacher who sued the state of New York.
He's fantastic, and he really fights, and he doesn't care. He just goes out there and says it the way it is, which, by the way, a lot of this program is going to be about, talking about how it just takes one person to change so much. And Michael Caine is exactly that person. And we do have one more. Okay, let's just take this last headline and then we'll go back and talk about these things. This is Thomas Massey. The big, beautiful bill contains a provision banning state and local governments from regulating AI. It's worse than you think. Catherine and Carolyn, you may want to talk to.
So essentially, what this has the potential to do is to take the U.S. Constitution, tear it up. Basically, under this
clearly
provision,
it's unconstitutional. So arguably, it means nothing because the states can do what the states can do under the Constitution. But having a law that's anti-constitutional that they're out enforcing is a bad sign.
So let me give you an example. We just posted to Larry in News Trends and Stories a 17-minute video, which we haven't independently fact-checked, about Elon Musk's supercomputer that he built in Memphis recently. And it's 17 minutes long. If you look at the story, they claim that he didn't have enough energy from the local energy providers. And so they installed 36 wind turbines, lied about how often they were using and how many they were using, and document and show that they are violating many, many environmental laws related to the use of this kind of energy at the site. And so there was very little disclosure about what the site was going to do and how it was going to do. The Musk team moved very, very quickly to build it. My guess is, and this is my guess, is this supercomputer was set up to basically receive all the data that Doge has stolen and transferred to private AA. That's my guess. So this is part of the art of the steal, if you will. But they just completely ignored all environmental laws, all
he didn't even get permits, did he?
Yeah, he didn't even get agency. Yeah, they just do
went
it.
in and did it.
Yeah, they just went in and did it. And there's lots of clips of the neighbors talking about the noise and other pollution that they're now dealing with because it's making people sick. So you watch that and you realize, oh, under this provision, that would all be legal. They could say, well, we need a supercomputer for AI. All these data centers they need for AI, right? So what this means is basically anybody under the pretext of AI can do whatever they want in a state, whenever they want. I mean, it's basically, if we wave the AI wand, then we have sovereign immunity from all laws. We can do whatever we want.
This also highlights how important it is to have good people at the state level, because the people in the governor, whoever in Tennessee that allowed this to happen, had to have been in on it. They knew what was going on. You can't build an installation that size without people in the state knowing that you're doing it.
Right. This had the governor's support. This absolutely had the governor's support.
I don't do Facebook or any of those, but I do Instagram. And I was just scrolling through, trying to find something. And there was this thing with Bobby. And Bobby was saying, right, everybody, along the lines of this, right, everybody who's taking diabetes pills, you need to ditch them and drink lemon water. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be doing that. And then I looked at the comments and it said, it's AI, it's AI, it's AI. I can't tell you how good that was.
Uh-huh.
It was him, his voice.
It was a deep fake.
Well, I guess if that's what it's called.
It was a deep fake. And if a state tried to stop it, the feds could take the position they can't do that. And a Silicon Valley general counsel could take the position they can't do that.
It was everybody should be petrified by that. I know many of you say it's been going on for ages. I'm late to the game because I don't really do social media.
No, you're not late. We're at the very beginning. We're at the very beginning because if you look at the latest poll, most of the AIs are at about 127 IQ. They're expected to go, 6,000 and rising. So we are at the very, very beginning. And generally right now, they don't work well. It's very messy and it's very expensive.
You mean
and you have all the AI. A lot of the investment advisory people are saying AI is turning out to be an economic bust. It's not turning out to be an economic bust because it was never meant to be economic. It was meant to control. And right now you have to keep working with it and working with it. It doesn't matter how much damage you're going to do. You need to just get it to work until you can control. And that's what's going on. But
They can
yeah,
make anything, Catherine. They could have you, I don't know, coming on live saying, I've changed my mind. I want you all to get vaccinated, put your money in this bank. And I mean, they could have you say anything.
right.
We had a fake site on YouTube purporting to be Catherine. Now, it did not show her picture with an animation. It was her alleged voice saying things with photographs on, but they're clearly able to take particularly because Catherine makes public appearances. They could take this show and have her photograph and animate it saying whatever they wanted.
Right. And that's
Oh,
why it's going to be essential if you want to listen to somebody to go to their site or a
Right.
site you can trust. So high
YouTube is not
integrity
that.
people and sites are going to be very important, but you have to watch them, through channels they control and can quality control.
but Catherine, also, Carolyn, what about if AI does something like call a child with the mummy's voice saying, hi, it's mummy. I want you to meet me here instead of here. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
think about
that
that.
is happening, Polly. That is happening now. So
How do
we
you
just
stop
did
that?
an interview with Bob Sullivan on cybercrime. They are using mind control technology and all of these technologies to basically steal people's money and persuade them to do things that help them steal your money. So we just, a couple months ago, we had as the movie of the week, The Beekeeper.
Oh,
It's an
yeah.
action movie. I'm not recommending it as entertainment, but it will show you how sophisticated the cybercrime has become. And it doesn't show you specifically that they're using the subliminal programming and entrainment technology, but they are. And they literally get elderly people addicted to, talking to the guy from the Mexican cartel. And the next thing you know, they're giving him his passwords and they're stealing all your entire life savings. It's extraordinary what's going on. And this cannot go on, given how the banking system works, without air cover from the intelligence agencies.
Okay, so now okay, so people are sitting there saying, right, this is really bad. I get it. What do we do about it? Can I just tell you my QR code story?
Please.
Okay, so as all of you know, I am
Oh, can
not.
I just, before we go on, I
Yes.
just need to say, there is a large number of Republican senators who are against the big, beautiful bill. And there are a number of reasons to be for it. The greatest one is the AI, as Massey describes. Remember, Massey and one of the Ohio congressmen were the only people who voted against it in the House. Now Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out and said if she'd known, she would have voted against it too. But in the Senate, we have Rand Paul, Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson just gave an incredible interview to the Financial Times talking about how bad this bill was and how many senators were opposed to it. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone, call your senator and tell them not to vote for this. And it's possible it will not pass and it deserves not to pass. I can't tell you how much damage it's going to do to the bond market. The bond investors don't like this because they see the waste of money and the spending, and they're not on board for this at all. This is going to significantly contribute to the deficit. So, and the bond market is headed for real trouble. So, just know that this bill is not a fait accompli, and if you feel led to raise your voice, you need to do that. I've emailed both of my senators, and I'm saying, do not pass this bill. Do not pass this bill. Anyway, sorry. QR code.
I'm glad you said that. I want to go back to the QR codes because it not start right at the base of the issue. And we've been talking about QR codes for so long now. I can't remember when we started talking about them. And I've never used one. Well, a week or so ago, my laptop, which I'm working on right now, broke. My children's health defense laptop. Without my laptop, I can't go live. I can't do my job. And CHD they're super careful with money. So your laptop has to literally blow up before you're going to get a new one. And so after lots of talking and them sharing screens and examining it, they decided, yes, Polytomy needs a new laptop. But I was going live the next day, so they said, you're going to have to race to the Apple store and pick it up. So they organized everything, they paid for it, and I felt super bad. My goodness, how expensive is a laptop? And I have the most basic one. Anyway, raced out to the store and they sent me a text saying, come and pick it up at exactly this time. So I walked into an Apple store, which, by the way, I haven't walked into for ages. Kind of gave me palpitations with all the stuff flashing everywhere. But anyway, in I went, and it was exactly my time. And she said, "Can I have your QR code?" And I said, "I don't have a QR code. I'm here to literally just pick up a laptop." And she said, "Well, you can't pick it up without a QR code." And I said, "Well, then I can't pick up my computer and I can't do my job because I'm not doing the QR code." She said, "All right, calm down. Never had a customer like you in my life before." She said, "But I sent you a text. Well, you got a text, did you not, to say that you are the person that's going to be picking up? Show me the text so I know that it's you." So I handed her my phone. I said, "There's my text saying," and my phone has a bright red light on it because that's the kind of person I am, because I don't want to interfere with my eyes. So most people can't even see my phone. So she was kind of doing this. And then she just, what I thought was scrolled and handed it back and said, "You're good to go." And there on my phone was a QR code. She had pressed the button on the text, and my phone, for the first time ever, people, I had a QR code. And I went absolutely mad with her. I was like, "I do not," and she just thought I was actually certified loony, to be honest with you. But that
No,
is,
she doesn't have the right to manipulate your phone.
I was showing her the text, and because it's bright red, my phone, because it's got a light on it to stop my eyes getting messed up. I thought she was just squinting to see it. And then she must have pressed the link or whatever it is. And suddenly I had a QR code. And then suddenly it was scanned. And suddenly I had a laptop in my hand. I was like, it's like someone taking your baby and just let me wash your baby and coming back with a big band-aid on because it's been vaccinated. It was that fast.
Right.
So I feel like violated.
You were.
I mean, awful. But does it not, it's got to the point now. She actually did say to me, you will not be able to get anywhere in life without learning to use QR codes. So you need to learn to use them. She actually said that to me.
So
where
you
we're
need to say to her, "No, I don't." I'm trying to organize an interview. There's a petition in Switzerland. Somebody is doing a referendum on the right to have a non-digital life. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And
And
there is a statute in Switzerland in one of the cantons
right.
to that effect.
So the worm is turning because you have so many young people now who are realizing, we don't want our kids to have smartphones. We don't want them to be allowed in school. We don't want, so retro is becoming very fashionable among the young people because they understand how dangerous this stuff is. But what I'm seeing, so I just had a confrontation last week with someone who's supposed to be a real freedom fighter, and we were talking about where you're going to get a new bank account, and they were saying, "Oh, I bank at Chase, and I want to get a bank account at Chase." And I said, "Wait a minute, you have a great local bank. In fact, you have two great local banks. You know, and they said, "Oh, well, the service is not as good." And I said, "You know something? That is a complete lie. That is false." And I made them sit down and listen to a 30-minute diatribe on all the things that can go wrong at a big bank and how you build a relationship with a small bank and you get everything done you need to. And it was basically when it was over, they were like, "Okay, okay." But they didn't understand the risks of not having a relationship with decision makers in your financial institution. And it was frightening, but it was mind control, Polly. I was talking to a program, not to a human being, and I had to get them out of the screen trance and into reality. And
Well,
I had so many facts on my side that finally they caved because, they're supposed to be about local. I mean, their business is going to be about promoting local, right?
Well, and Catherine, you're all about doing business with people and institutions that have integrity.
Right.
There's no institution that has less integrity that I can think of, other than possibly Bayer, that than J.P. Morgan Chase. I mean, how many things have they been convicted of and fined for? The fact that no one's gone to jail is only because the Department of Justice is corrupt too. Uh, why do you want to do business with a business that does not have integrity?
So here's the reality. The reason the Department of Justice is not going to prosecute, well, they do civil money and criminal money.
Right, they
So
fine them.
they get kickbacks. They get kickbacks. But the reason is JP Morgan Chase and Citibank are the two large stoners of the New York Fed, which is their banker and controls their bank account. Okay, so it's very unlikely you're going to prosecute the guy who controls your bank account, right? Right. So
Can I ask you a question? And it might be a very basic question, but there's one thing I'm really struggling with. Okay, so I have now my little credit union and everything's great and they're super sweet and I love them. But I cannot transfer money to England to my family if I need to. I don't do PayPal, I don't do Zelle, or I don't do any of those things. How do you, and the only people is like, well, you have to go with Chase or you have to go Bank of America or whatever, because
no,
they're
no, 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 no.
that's what
I've
I'm
never
asking. How do you
heard of a
transfer
local
money?
bank or credit union who wouldn't wire money to internationally. I've
International.
never heard of that. So you found a special institution. But a community bank is going to wire. So you're in a credit union, and sometimes they don't have business services. But there's bound to be a community bank that will wire anywhere in the world.
So set up another one in the community bank then.
Yeah, I would go
Well,
go
you have
in,
to have
go
two
figure out
accounts.
the best community bank around you, interview them, and then make sure you have a procedure. Now, the wire fraud is very bad. And one of the reasons you want a local bank is because of how bad the wire fraud is. You want to have relationships with people who know you and you know.
What do you
And
mean
and
by wire fraud, Catherine? What exactly do you mean? Like,
there is a growing problem. Remember when I said with sophisticated cybercrime,
Mhm.
where clients are or depositors are being stung by cybercrime, and the bank is held responsible to stop it from going through. So the banks are getting more and more invasive about checking wires, where it's going, why it's going. But that's because they're getting pressure from the regulators to try and stop it on the other side. So that's number one. But the other thing is, if somebody calls with a deep fake being your voice and a deep fake being your video and persuades the bank it's you and has them wire to a new place a lot of money from your account because they have all your data, how's the bank supposed to stop that?
Well,
So
and if
you,
well, if you are patronizing a bank where they actually know you,
right.
this is much less likely to happen. If you have different trainees in your bank branch every month, they don't know you.
Right. So wires have become much trickier than they used to be. So 2 years ago, we didn't begin to have the problems that we have today.
Right.
So I would set up procedure. I would get a good local community bank that does wires everywhere. I mean, I've literally never heard of a bank that wouldn't wire anywhere in the world, but I guess you found one,
I found a
and
lit one.
and I would set up a relationship and figure out. They want a two-step process to approve a wire, and I think that's very prudent. And you want a difficult wire process. You do not want a speedy online wire process in this environment at all, ever.
Well, and you could ask whether there's a procedure they could automatically put on your account to require certain things before they wire or transfer more than a certain amount of money. There are systems like that for debit cards. When you have a fair amount of money in your account, you have a debit card, you can have a limit of $1,000 or whatever, and you have to call up and say, I want to I want to do a debit transaction for more than $1,000 for, with such and such business, and then they lift it. But there have to be ways that you can do that with wires too. I also will say that banks have relation. I don't know credit unions very well, but I know that banks have, even small banks have correspondent bank relationships with larger banks. And so sometimes that's how you get wires through, is through a correspondent bank. So it's a relationship that your financial institution has with a larger international group.
What do you think about credit cards? I don't have a credit card and I will never have a credit card. I have a debit, but I do not have a credit card.
Well,
I
try to get a rental car without a credit card.
Yes,
I
actually, you can use a debit card, but it's very bulky. You have to get them to call the bank, and you have to get the bank to up the
I
limit.
wasn't able to do it when I tried, and I happened to have a credit card that I never put. I have a credit card, but I think it's a Discover card, but I don't use it generally. But
So
I
I
have it
I
there.
do use credit cards. And because if you look at the level of traveling I do, you can't travel without a credit card. So, and I do a lot of travel by car, and one of the reasons I do is I can use the credit card a lot less, but I do use a credit card. So, and I don't mind using a credit card. You want to keep it to a minimum. So the more you can use cash and the more you can have an analog. I mean, for example, one of the reasons I drive so much is so that, you don't get sick because domestically in the United States, flying, as far as I'm concerned, is just an invitation to get sick. And I say that I'm flying to Salt Lake today, so
Are
back
you
on
in
the plane.
now? You're in America now?
I'm in America now. I leave on Sunday, go back to Europe on Sunday. So I'll fly to Salt Lake today, and then I'll fly back from Salt Lake. I'll fly back to Europe on Sunday.
But there are good parts to America. I mean, it's a beautiful country. I just want to say this for 1 second. It is, I think, it's having traveled around on the bus, wonderful people. I know we talk about the bad people the whole time and the bad things happening, but I cannot tell you how many good.
Oh, wonderful people, wonderful people. And remember, even the people's, so I want to talk about mind control because there's been a resurgence of research and people interested in figuring out how we beat the mind control. But there are just even the people who've been put in the trance, they are victims of the machinery, and many of them are very good-hearted and good people. So, and of course the the propaganda, the disinformation, and the mind control is all set up to do divide and conquer, and they're trying so hard to divide and conquer us. So,
And this whole mind control, in my mind, a lot of my family or the British people, when I go over there, they watch the BBC like this. It's like the BBC is their God. What the BBC says is what's happening in the world. And it's very, very frustrating. And the news they get is not the same news as we get over here, etc., etc. And it's hard not to get into an argument with them but you have to try and understand them. And they are good people. They are
right,
good, but they're
right,
completely brainwashed by the BBC.
right. I know.
Well, there's sort of there's soft mind control and hard mind control. And the soft mind control, what I would call soft mind control, is the repetition of lies over and over again. If you, watch the BBC and New York Times and Wall Street Journal and all of CNN versions of what's wrong with anti-vaxxers or what's right about vaccines, you will hear them say verbatim the same thing. And the same thing happened during the pandemic. It was a repetition of exactly the same thing by across all communications media. And so, yes, there are embedding of things in movies and things like that you might call hard mind control, but some of it's just psychological manipulation.
Well, but you are up against hard mind control, and you have to understand that.
Right.
And you particularly need to understand that when it comes to protecting your time and money, because I can watch the BBC and get an official narrative about what's happening politically, and it doesn't impact my time. I just know the official story is, this guy's the prime minister. It's a complete lie, but it doesn't affect my time and money. The thing that worries me is the mind control that gets you to poison your children, whether it's with poison food or poison pharmaceuticals, or gets you to engage in a investment which is bound to lose you money or is just openly fraudulent. So the thing that scares me about mind control and that we try and stop for our subscribers is mind control that gets you to act against your own best interest. In other words, my vision of the world is we want you to have a free and inspired life. And we want you to use your time and money to achieve that vision for yourself, whatever it is. And we don't want anything interrupting and causing you to do things that veer you from that path and extract value from you in a way which is harmful to your time, your health, your relationships and your money. And that's the thing that scares me about the mind control, because I keep watching people who are acting against their own self-interest. Why would you get a mother? I will tell you, if you look, Lou brought up this collection that we have on Soleri on mind control tactics, but I first collected it for a group of parents and grandparents who were like, what is happening to our children? And so we put it together and we keep updating it and updating it. So if you go to the latest at Solari, you can pull it up and we'll have updates. And you need to understand that you're literally in a war where somebody is trying to get you to act against your own self-interest. And that's the danger. And they're trying to get your children to act not only against their own self-interest, but your self-interest as well. So, Polly, one vax injury, what it can do to your time and money for the rest of your life.
Right.
So
in that tactics thing that you just pulled up, what kind of things are in there?
Okay, well, let's run through it
Yeah.
because it's, mind control is many layers. As Carolyn said, there's soft power, then there's hard power. So maybe if we can we roll through that, Lou? So we start with the Solari reports that we've done, and we're just publishing this week a new interview with Josh Steilman on his new he's done a series on mind control called MK Ultra, and so we're just publishing that this week. So let's just keep going down. So we have a whole series of Solari reports. The first one I ever did was on how it's used to market fraudulent financial investments, because as an investment advisor, I was dealing with clients who were being targeted with this technology, and I literally couldn't talk them out of intentionally losing their money unless they understood that this stuff existed. Okay, so then keep going down. So the next one is on a series of different interviews and wait, I'm going to pull it up on my computer so I can see the whole thing.
And you're recommending this for parents to read?
Parents and grandparents.
Okay.
And anybody who deals with children. So if you're dealing if you're a teacher or if you're a coach, you need to understand that this is happening. And wait a minute, let me just pull it up and give you some suggestions as to what you really will help you.
Some of these books are great.
So the first of the Solari reports, and we'll add the Josh Steilman after this week to that. One of the best books on the history of mind control is Secret Don't Tell by Carla Emery, and their website is now having a $5 a book sale right now. And but if you're interested in the history, that's a good one. If you go down through these different videos, these are sort of different descriptions of what's happening. There's one from a Colonel Matt Hepburn talking about implantable biosensors. So one of my theories is the materials that they keep trying to get into our bodies make it easier to influence people's thoughts. There's some military people who claim that they can read thoughts. I don't know if that's true. If you look at the book review section, one of the top books is on girls who have been persuaded to do transgender, including, doing physical things, whether surgery or drugs that are irreversible. And it was written by an attorney. She doesn't talk about mind control, but her number one advice is never give your child a smartphone. And I will tell you, it's because the mind control can come through the smartphone. There's several books on how technologies build, habit forms or build habits. There's one on more invasive hard control by Dr. John Hall, who was a doctor who was dealing with somebody who was his girlfriend became a targeted individual. And then there's one called Addiction by Design, which is, I think, one of the best books. It's a very serious academic study written by someone at Tufts and MIT on how the gambling industry developed the software to create physical addictions through slot machines. And what you read is years and years of billions of dollars of research, literally creating physical addictions. And when you read it, you can't believe that this stuff is legal. But one of the things you understand is the extraordinary amount of money and science that has gone into building software capacity, whether it's smartphones or computers or slot machines, to create addiction. And you see what a serious industry this is.
The gambling addiction.
Yeah, gambling addiction.
But
And
I spoke to a mother recently who said it destroyed their lives. The son that was a gambler addicted to
yeah.
gambling.
And
I mean,
it bankrupts the family again. It's another family because it's a financial extraction. Okay, your brain on porn. There's a lot going on with porn and addiction. Then Mark Rich is someone who was targeted by both high tech interference as well as mind control, and he did a deep dive doing a series of books that have a lot of information about tactics. Okay, then we go to mind control tactics used on all ages. The Minds of Men is one of the best documentaries ever done on the history of mind control. It only goes through 1979, but you see the extraordinary amount of money that has been poured into basically manipulating you. The next one is a Harvard scientist who has, at great courage and expense to himself, sort of blown the whistle on a lot of what Google is doing. James Giordano, who follows, is someone who is focused on basically neuroscience as warfare. And he's got a series of videos. He usually speaks to the intelligence agencies of the military. But he knows a lot about this stuff, and it's pretty useful. And then if you keep going down, you'll see links to Josh Domin's new series on Substack. And again, our interview with him goes up, just went up this week. And so let me see if it's this week or next week. It's a really good one.
so,
Yeah, so it'll go up next week.
So a lot of parents, because we're Children's Health Defence, contact us and they're desperate for us to help them with their children's screen addiction. And, and some of these are homeschoolers. So they'll go around to each other's houses and everybody's on a screen. They're allowed 30 minutes a day or whatever it is. But when they take the phones or whatever it is, the screen time away from them is what we're hearing the whole time. The meltdowns are to a level that people have not seen before. So,
right, it's a dangerous physical addiction. If you read Addiction by Design, you'll get an example of this. But now what they're doing is much worse. So let me just, I think I told you I was at a really excellent presentation by a guy who does a podcast with Scott Galloway, and he is 26 years old. He's British, and he said, my generation, Generation Z, if you look at our time, we spend 100 days a year, the equivalent of 100 days a year sleeping, and 109 days a year looking at a screen. And he said, that means we have 40% less time for life than your generation. And he said, our number one complaint is loneliness. And our levels of anxiety and depression have doubled in the last, I think, 10 years. So this stuff is very, very dangerous. And think about that. If they're going to spend 109 days looking at the screen, they're never going to be successful in life. They're just going to be zombified. So I think if you're a homeschooler or if you're a parent, you're going to have to either say no screens, or you're going to have to find a way to create that limit. But
yeah, and I think it's important, Catherine and Carolyn, and listen, I've made many mistakes, as you all know, as a mother, so I'm not judging anybody, but I think it's important I wish I'd done this, by the way, as soon as my children were able to understand that you explain, you're not just being a mean mummy. There's a reason why, because we love you so much. We don't want you to do this because this is what's going to happen to you. And I think we need more of that, and teaching kids to ask questions as well. So, to be fair to Del Bigtree, that's always what he used to say, is like, teach your kids to question everything, which is not how we were brought up as children in England. Certainly we were taught to, obey authority the whole time. Don't question. Children should be seen and
so
not
the
heard.
children I see that are successful staying off of screens are always outside. They're busy. They are hiking, they are skiing, they are riding horses, they are swimming, they are going places, they are playing soccer. So They spend a huge amount of time outdoors, but they're doing things. They're going to German lessons, they're going to Spanish lessons, they're going to after school math courses. They are busy and they are active, and they are active in things that where they do things with other kids. So now that takes a lot more parenting time,
Yeah.
but that's what you have to do. You have to keep them busy, and you have to keep them active, and you have to keep them off screens. So I do know one parent who their child became severely addicted, and was really changing personality and everything else, and it turned into a very tough war, but the parents insisted that the kid go off on one of these 80-day courses where you're out in the woods and there's no digital anything. There's no TVs, there's no screens, there's whatever. And you're surfing and you're hiking and you're kayaking and you're, with another group of young people your age. It's very expensive, but it worked. And it was funny, I saw a before and after picture of the kid before they went to the course and after they went to it's a different person. I mean, their whole aura was completely different. And apparently the child has now been able to have a phone and not get like that again.
But here's the other issue as well, which we hear about, is that this is all very well and good, and this is what we should be doing. But as they get older and they want to do intern work or whatever, everything is then back on the screen. Like most jobs these days, I mean, I couldn't do my job with a virtual company without my laptop and my
Right.
phone, sadly.
Carolyn and I are in the same spot. Unfortunately, we built a company on a remote basis because that's what we could do. Remember, I was having cars run me off the road, so resources were limited, right, Carolyn?
Right.
So, so anyway, so we were dealing in an environment of extreme stress, and you do what you can do, but I don't know, we're all just going to have to find a way to deal with the mind control, and in my experience, people who understand this stuff exists and are prepared to, operate in a world, where they have to protect themselves from it, can make a huge difference. I look at the families, so let's talk about what we can do. I look at the families who have systematically gone through their life, and whether it's their food and their farmer, or their fisherman, or their banker, or their, all the different people they do business with, have systematically taken the time to build relationships, to find people of integrity in all the different areas. So they found the doctor who's doing a whole new healthcare kind of clinic with cash, and so they've gone to the effort of getting to, signing up and seeing Dr. Pierre Corey or doctors like this. They've gone to the effort of saying, okay, I'm going to go to paying cash for healthcare. They've gone to the effort of figuring out the local food systems, or like you do, having chickens, or everybody's different, but they've taken the time to go through all the different parts of their lives and go to the inconvenient trouble of finding people and businesses of integrity and building those relationships. And now they're infinitely healthier, infinitely happier, infinitely better off. And so I'm watching people who are on a treadmill who are getting sicker and sicker and getting hiccuped constantly by doing business with people who don't have integrity, telling me that they don't have the time to go find people of integrity. And all their time is being extracted, by doing business in a world where people are just criminal and trying to steal from them. It's like, I don't have time to get away from the Russian mafia. I'm too busy. And meantime, the Russian mafia is killing you. That's a mind control program.
Can I say a couple of things? Number one is I do something called Ask Catherine with Catherine sometimes, and we have a health corner and we have a tech corner with other people. And a lot of the people who write in with questions are telling me how terrified they are of whatever. Terrified of not having enough money in retirement. Terrified of this, terrified of that. And, if you live in fear, you're going to be a whole lot more susceptible to mind control. And having what some people call a 10-second cushion where you discipline yourself to think about and not just act robotically, because we go into this kind of place, I do, where I'm chilling out and I'm just kind of doing things robotically, and I'm not thinking about what's going on around me and making a conscious decision about something. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm really in favor of using the time in the summer in this country. We have kids are off of school, and there are camps and all sorts of things like where kids can go work on a farm. Do there, my son went to a singing camp in the Sierra Madres, and this was a long time ago, but I don't think they were on I don't think they were on phones when they were singing in the Sierra Madres. So there are all sorts of opportunities to sign kids up for things.
Oh,
Catherine,
speaking, Carolyn, I can hear you.
where you can sign kids up for things that are very wholesome and don't involve digital anything.
I agree with you 100%. And actually, I have to say to everyone, I know I sound like a wackadoodle person, but someone recently told me, because of this screen time stuff and everything, take your shoes and socks off, walk barefoot, and you ready for it?
Earthing.
Hug a tree. We're the tree huggers. Remember, they were the nutters. And you know what? It's just by being barefoot, which I do all the time now. I feel so much better. I feel good. I'm grounding myself and get out in nature and yeah, hug a tree. I don't care how.
Gardening is a very wholesome, back to nature kind of thing that takes you outside, gets you exposed to the sunlight, which is also very important.
Growing your own food. We just grown a load of tomatoes, and I can't tell you how much fun picking them, or tomatoes, and it's just fun picking them. So just get out there and do it. And a lot of you, I know what it's like. You get used to just like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm tired all the time. You're tired because you're in front of these screens the whole time. I know it because I've been there. And you just have to get yourself up and get yourself out. Easier said than done, I know. But listen, this was a really fun show today. Thank you. I've really enjoyed sitting down and chatting with you. And just to say to everyone, Solari has so many articles on there. I remember the wonderful one was, I can't remember who wrote it, with a load, like 101 things to do if you want to activate yourself and get out there. It wasn't Whitney Webb, it was Courtney or somebody, I can't remember.
Was it Carolyn?
Adam's Carolyn, yes.
It's
And that's
Carolyn.
really, really good. Go back to some of those older, maybe you should be rotating them so that they come up to the front again. But you've really got some fantastic stuff over there. So if you think, well, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know how I can help, go to Solari, and they have a million things that you can do to help. Lots of articles on that. And everyone should be doing something, even if it's just praying for the country, which you should be doing anyway.
Right,
But also,
you can always pray. Prayer makes a difference. Start a prayer closet and go to, if you
Prayer
want
and
your activism
meditation.
to be spiritual, just do it that way.
yeah, and sharing things and all those kind of things. But listen, to everybody out there, remember, fear is the worst enemy of all. So do not settle either. Do never, ever settle. It's one of the most important things ever. You don't have to. You're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of your family, not a politician, no one else. Do your own research and do it properly. Do your own research does not mean go to your pediatrician and say, is it safe to get my child vaccinated? That is not research, trust me. So Catherine,
I'm just going to say it. Most pediatricians, if it takes you 3 hours to go and then you have to pay money, that's a lose-lose. And then they tell you to poison your kid. That's, don't go.
yeah, I've always said
And
that.
they're feeding your
Time and
data.
money, your time and money is precious. Go find people in healthcare, whether it's a doctor or nurse practitioner, who knows what they're doing and is not mind controlled.
Pediatric chiropractors are good if you can get a good one. And I'm a big fan of homeopathy, whatever it did, but there's lots of advice and help. And also there's lots of really good groups. Look at our chat right now, full of amazing people, and they're there to back you up and help you as well. So I just want to thank you both for all the work and for coming on here every single week and educating people at Children's Health Defence. We're so grateful to you both. And thank you for the Solari and everything you do.
We're so grateful to you, Polly. we love everything you're doing. So, and I do want to say one thing, because it came up this week again and again. The beauty of American law and our legal system is that each person individually has rights. and their freedom comes to them by divine authority. It is not okay for, a political shortcut that says that people are expendable. That is absolutely not acceptable under our law. One person is sovereign and one person is sacred. And we need to constantly remember that. And we need to respect that. And that is the great power of what we have. And that's why things like this big, beautiful bill, should never be permitted to pass the Senate. And frankly, if we're paying people who would pass this, we need to think about better things. It's time to get radical about taxation without representation.
Amen to that. Okay, we're going to go to our Gardasil story. This month we are doing the Gardasil HPV injuries and death from it to warn people of the dangers of that. So we're going to go to that now. But Catherine and Carolyn, we'll see you next week. Yes, we will.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I do. Real quick, I probably want to do this with you longer tomorrow morning because my Nana's with my daughter, but I do believe that I was vaccine injured by the HPV vaccine. I was sexually active as a teenager, and the commercials really spoke to me. They drill into you, and as a innocent, uneducated teenager, and it's kind of a long story with custody and everything, but I went ahead in, and my sister went in with me, and I got my first of the 3 shots. After that, I just got sick. I got so sick to the point where I couldn't even function and go to school. I was just so sick. I couldn't stop sleeping, and I was just nauseous, and I'd have to wake up in the middle of the night and drink milk because I was starving, and I was just so malnourished. I developed anorexia after that. Long story short, cut ahead a few months, I went in for the second vaccine shot. After that, I got the biggest tumor on my calf. I can show you the scar, it's pretty gnarly. And I remember going in, and my mom was freaking out because it developed, I think, 1 to 2 days after I got the vaccine, the second shot, and it exploded. This big one exploded, and I got one on my neck and 2 on my back. And my mom went in, took me into the doctor, and they said, he walked out of the room, he came back in, I remember it very distinctly, and he goes, we need to get her checked for lymphoma. And my mom had a shit fit. She fell to the ground crying. I'm freaking out. I don't even know what that is. And my mom is just scared to death, and he goes, we need to start her on chemotherapy as soon as possible, and my mom is just freaking out. After that, she decided to just pick me up and take me home and just think about it, which the best thing possible to do at that point. The tumor on my leg just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I couldn't even walk because my entire leg was just numb. It was on my lymph nodes. Everything was just numb, and my back, I was in constant pain. So we did actually have to go back in, and they removed it. And I remember them taking it out, and I asked to see it. And it was the biggest, blackest, gnarliest thing that I've ever seen in my life, and it's one of those things that you look at and you're just scarred. After that, they told her that it was a fatty tumor, and I know for a fact that that could have never been a fatty tumor, because fatty tumors are fatty, you know. They don't have green and black and blood inside that, and thinking back on it now, I am extremely thankful that they didn't take the one out of my spine, because I would have been paralyzed. And they took the one out of my leg, and my mom is just, I'm thankful to Jesus Christ that she just took me out and just said, no, we're done. I'm done with this. We're done with this. It's just, we're done. I never went back to a doctor again. fast forward a few years, I got pregnant very young. I got married and pregnant in 1 year, very young, and everybody started saying, do the vaccines. And so I started researching. I started getting crazy about it, and I was like eating it up like it was no one's business. And I just wanted more knowledge. I wanted more knowledge, and all these things about the HPV vaccine just kept coming up. And I just started researching it. One day I decided to call the hospital and said, hey, I might have been vaccine injured by the HPV vaccine. A few days later, I kept calling back. Now to this day, I have no record. There's no record of me going in and getting the tumor removed. There's no record of me entering that doctor's office. There's no record. They completely expunged my record because I openly came out and I said, hey, I'm pretty sure that I was vaccine injured. I'd like to figure out more information. All because I had a baby inside me and I wanted to get more information. And it's just crazy to me that the stars aligned, and I was blessed with this, like, there's something creepy and completely stupid going on here, and that's pretty much it. And I've been anti that from then on, and only taken my daughter into the doctor once because I thought she had a really bad ear infection. It was just teething, and and I got bombarded with, you need to vaccinate, and never went back. She is 3.5 years old. Only been sick 3 times. I, on the other hand, I get sick and I stay sick for weeks. I'm sick. We recently just had a cold in the house and I am still sick from it. My husband had it for like 3 days and my daughter had it for about a day. That was it. And so I do believe vaccine injured, and my immune system is completely just gone from that one vaccine. So thank you, and I would like to hug you.
Yes, I want
Give
to
you a
hug
hug.
you. I'm so sorry this happened to you.
Open my eyes though,
And you
because
can
if I
actually-
didn't open my eyes, then my
Another
daughter.
girl, please.
Yeah,
Tell
what?
your story and tell the girls around the young
No,
girls.
I do.
You
My
go to the
people,
colleges.
yeah, family think I'm
You
crazy.
don't need to write in this. We've developed a very neat line. We don't
Okay.
need to do that.
We don't need to do
We
that.
can write anywhere we like.
Okay.
For your number.
And just write my name. Rushan. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Beautiful lady. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Is that
I love
what
you.
do at the rally, yeah?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right.
Early, I'm bringing donuts. They're vegan.
Great.
They'll be vegan.
Okay.
Are you
Right.
vegan?
I'm gluten free.
Oh, okay, gluten free. Shoot. Okay. But I love you anyways. We're gluten free though too.
Bring your fruit.
I'll bring you fruit. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you
And
very
I'm gonna
much.
come on Periscope and come back on again on another phone because
Okay.
my battery's about to die.
Okay. Have a good night.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.